Okay, so this is going to be the quickest intro ever because this camera is on 3% and it's about to die. But I wanted to pop in and say hello to you guys really quickly. This is going to be another voiceover video, just like my last video on remothering. And as you can see by the title, this will be about refathering. Now, I wanted to quickly address two things. The first thing is that in my remothering video, there were a couple of comments that were asking me, why I titled it remothering, just because the subject matter was nurturing. Basically, they were saying that, it's a father's job to nurture their child as well, not just mothers. And I do understand that, I do get that. It's just that in my mind, it's just easier to grasp these concepts and to understand them by splitting them up into remothering and refathering. So when I need to nurture myself, I just say, okay, I need to remother myself. And when I need to give myself that discipline and that structure, I say, okay, I need to refather myself. It's just easier for my brain to kind of understand the concepts that way. So that's why I teach it that way. But you could always, put refathering and remothering under the same umbrella. You could take the last video and this video and put it just under one reparenting umbrella pretty much. So yeah, that's the first thing I wanted to address. And the second thing is Patreon. A lot of people have been emailing me, asking me, when Patreon is going to be up, and I am going to have Patreon up within the next couple of days. I'm just a perfectionist, so I try to get things as close to perfect as possible. Even though I know perfect doesn't exist, I try to get dangerously close to it. So yeah, that's why I haven't, gotten Patreon up yet, but it will be up in the next few days, and I will be doing a separate video, explaining what my Patreon is going to be about. So yeah, that's it. Like I said, this will be a voiceover video about refathering, and this video will be specifically for people who did not have a father figure growing up, or just did not have that discipline and that structure, that children need in a household. And usually, dysfunctional families don't have that structure for you, and it can just cause a host of problems in adulthood. And we will, get more into that in the intro. In the voiceover. This is the intro. But yeah, this is on 2% now, so I have to go. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all. I will see you guys in my next video. We're gonna go ahead and dive into the voiceover.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get into how to refather yourself. Now, I broke this down into 3 categories, which is protection, guidance, and discipline. And if you watched my reparenting video that I made a very long time ago, probably sometime last year, we did talk about the 2 different aspects of parenting. And just quickly recapping, for those of you who didn't see it, or for those of you who forgot because that video was from like a year ago. Basically, I was saying that, children need the mothering aspect, which is the nurturing, building up their self-esteem, basically their internal world, like building their internal world, their emotional well-being. And then there is fathering, which is basically providing a strong structure or a solid structure for their external world. So if you ever get confused about remothering and refathering, you can simplify it by saying your remothering process means taking care of yourself internally, like your emotions and nurturing, and then your refathering process is about your external world and creating a safe environment for you externally. So that's just the way that I'm able to easily differentiate between the 2 or remember them really easily. Okay, so let's first talk about protection. So the definition of protection is preventing someone from suffering harm or injury. So when you are refathering yourself and you are protecting yourself, that means that you are removing yourself from any harmful situations. Now that could mean, a toxic relationship, a toxic friendship. It could mean like a toxic work environment, anything that is causing you, physical or mental/emotional harm. You need to shield yourself from it and remove yourself from it, if you can. Sometimes there's instances where you can't remove yourself, and in that case you have to learn how to try your best to set boundaries. Like let's say you're living with someone and your roommate is like disrespectful, or they're just really rude or really inconsiderate, and you can't move away or you can't move out right away. That would be an instance where you would have to then stand up for yourself and set boundaries if you're not able to completely remove yourself from the situation. And we'll talk more about setting boundaries later. But going into another aspect of protecting yourself would be avoiding any negative information. So, and I had to add this in because, it's easy to think of protection as, like protecting yourself from people or protecting yourself like from, a certain environment. But we sometimes forget that certain information that we consume, or certain media that we consume can also be very detrimental or harmful to us psychologically, and we're needing to shield ourselves from that. That's why parents put like, that parental block like on certain channels and on certain like websites, because, they're protecting their child from being able to consume those things. And if you are someone who is sensitive or has a sensitive inner child, you need to protect yourself in the same way. Like, for example, I know that, there's a lot of people who are very sensitive and they can't really handle really sad movies or really like depressing movies or really traumatic movies with a lot of violence. Like, you have to really know yourself and know your inner child very well and protect yourself accordingly. Like, I'm very hypersensitive, so I am the type of person that I can't handle like horror movies or like, what do they call, like thriller movies or shows that are like have too much trauma. Like that show that just came out not too long ago, what is it called, Lovecraft Country. I watched that show, big mistake, because it weighed on me for a good week, because it was just so traumatic and I should not have consumed it. So that was a good example of, me not fathering myself well, because I should not have watched or consumed all of that trauma. So yeah, you have to kind of take note of that, know yourself well, and try to remove yourself from anything that is too, upsetting to you. And that could also mean like social media or the news and things of that sort. I know that you can't shield yourself from everything, but if you're sensitive, you do have to put up those, those boundaries or those blockages, when it comes to those things that will, harm you mentally or emotionally. Or they'll weigh on you mentally or emotionally, I should say. Okay, so next we're going to talk about setting clear boundaries, which is another aspect of protecting yourself. And when you set a boundary, it's basically you telling someone what they are not allowed to do to you, So you can set physical boundaries and you can also set emotional boundaries, okay? So a physical boundary would be like if someone was trying to hug you and you're not comfortable hugging them, so you kind of step back and you extend your hand instead, like, no, I'm more comfortable shaking hands, I don't want to hug. That would be like a physical boundary. If you were to set an emotional boundary, it would be like, you're not allowed to speak to me that way. I don't like how you're talking to me. I don't like how you're making me feel. Don't do that. Like, if you talk to me like that again, I'm not going to engage in this conversation. That would be like an emotional boundary. So it's very important for you to set those clear boundaries with people. And if you're someone who, lacked that discipline and that structure at home, or if you even had parents who, violated your boundaries, it could be very difficult for you to do this. And that's very common if you had like a narcissistic parent or narcissistic parents who just did not respect your boundaries at all. Like, the parents who are just like, you're not allowed to lock your door, and they bust in your room at any time, or you're in the bathroom and they come into the bathroom without knocking. Like those like parents who just take it above and beyond and violate boundaries. I could go on a whole rant about that, because that really bothers me when parents do that to their children and they don't respect their boundaries, because it's literally setting them up for other people to do the same thing and to violate their boundaries, you see. So yeah, it's very important, especially if you grew up in that environment, to learn how to set very clear boundaries. And it may feel very foreign to you. It actually may make you feel a little bit guilty at times to set these boundaries, but it's something that is necessary, something that is needed. And the more that you do it, the easier that it gets. Now, I did want to note that sometimes this shows up in a different way, because sometimes, we can have a hard time setting boundaries and kind of let people walk all over us. But then on the opposite end of that, when we do set boundaries, we can do it in a very extreme way. So I definitely struggle with this, where on one end, I wouldn't set boundaries at all, but then I would get fed up and I would just become really explosive. And I would like, set boundaries in a very angry, explosive way. And I needed to learn how to have a happy medium. I needed to learn how to not let people walk all over me to the point where now I get angry and explosive. And I've set the boundary now, but now I've also burned a bridge, And sometimes it's necessary to burn those bridges, of course, but sometimes it was just like, okay, that wasn't necessary. So yeah, it's like a very important to kind of really know yourself and know, do you have a problem with not setting boundaries at all, or taking it above and beyond and setting them in an unhealthy way? And then you're needing to learn how to maneuver that in a more, healthy way. Okay, so something else that I wrote down was standing up for yourself. And I feel like standing up for yourself is a part of setting clear boundaries. It's definitely a part of protecting yourself for sure. Learning how to basically speak up for yourself, not allowing people to disrespect you. But this also comes with, learning how to pick and choose your battles, because there are times where people are not worth your energy. And so it's not worth it to, go ahead and, spend energy arguing back and forth with them. But at times, it is important for you to defend yourself and let it be known that you're not going to allow this type of disrespect. Because some people, yes, you just walk away from them and ignore them, and then it dies down and they know, like, not to mess with you because they're not going to get a rise out of you. But then there are some people who you really do need to stand up for yourself, especially if it's in like a work environment, and if they are trying to ruin your reputation or something like that at work, and it's like interfering with your money and things of that sort. You need to stand up for yourself and say something. It takes some sort of action. You can't take those type of things lying down. So definitely use your discernment, pick and choose your battles. But I would say that standing up for yourself, or learning how to stand up for yourself, is a very big part of refathering yourself, especially because if you were missing this parental figure in childhood, you're probably not used to anybody standing up for you. You're probably used to people, hurting you, violating you, and things of that sort, and then you feeling like no one in the world is coming to speak up on my behalf. And so to me, it's very healing for me to speak up for myself. Very healing, because I just remember the times as a child where I didn't have anybody to speak up for me. And so now I feel like I'm that voice for myself, So I feel like that's an important part of refathering yourself. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next section, which is guidance. Okay. The definition of guidance is advice or information aimed at resolving a problem / difficulty. Okay. So I wanted to include this in refathering because I've noticed that, children who grew up in dysfunctional households, people who did not have that father figure or that parental figure that gave that, structure and discipline, they often, lacked basic guidance that was needed to become a mature, functioning adult. Like, for example, they may not know how to manage their money well, or some don't even know how to pay bills. Some, end up living with their parents for, a very, very long time, which there's nothing wrong with that. Of course, there are some cultures where, children live with their parents up until they get married, but I'm talking about, in the sense that it's in a dysfunctional way where they've been infantilized to the point where they just don't know how to function as a proper adult. So this guidance section of refathering is very important, because this will be basically the area where you will look at the things that maybe you don't know, and you will fill in the gaps through, seeking out that wisdom on your own. Like, for example, I definitely struggle with managing my finances, for sure. That's something that I had to basically seek out wisdom and guidance about. I actually ended up, after I graduated from college, I ended up going to a community college and taking an online class after I had already graduated, specifically on finance, personal finance, because I noticed that that was a huge gap for me. Like, I didn't know how to manage my money. So it's like filling in those gaps through seeking out that guidance and that wisdom. And you don't even have to like sign up for an online class that I did. You could literally just go to, the internet. The internet has so much information, so much knowledge. There's a bunch of forums on the internet. There's YouTube and, things of that sort online where you can go and learn anything. So this is going to be, personal, based off of, who you are and what you know. You really just have to sit and take inventory of, are there areas in my life where I genuinely feel like I have been misguided, or I haven't gotten the right guidance, and I need to now seek out that wisdom and that guidance myself, So like I said, this could be like finances. Learning how to manage your money. This could be things like learning how to change a tire, learning how to eat properly, like seeking out like how to put together a meal plan for yourself, things of that sort. Like any area where wisdom or knowledge can be obtained that will help you to function more readily in life, you should go ahead and seek that guidance for yourself, because that's a very important aspect of refathering. And I also did write down a mentor / counselor could be very effective for you, because like I said in my remothering video, you don't have to go through this process alone. There are people who can aid you in this process. So in the remothering video, I talked about like going to like a therapist, or even going to go like get a massage, or things of that sort, where or going to like the dentist or the doctor to help you take care of your body. It's like other people or professionals helping you to remother yourself. And in this section, or in this video of refathering yourself, it's very similar. Like, you could go and seek out a mentor, you can go and seek out a counselor, you can go and seek out a life coach, or even like an older person, like an elder, who you can get advice from. Don't be afraid to seek out that help. And I did find a very good quote online that I wanted to read about struggling with problems, and why it's important to seek out guidance. Because one thing that I did notice as well is that children who grew up in dysfunctional households, who didn't have that proper structure and guidance from that parental figure, we do tend to not seek out help. Like, it just seems foreign to us. Like, when we have a problem, we tend to just carry it. We tend to just grit and bear it. And we think, okay, well, I got through it, because I lived, so I'm fine, and I don't have to go seek out any help or guidance, But that's not the case. Usually we are just like piling on those issues, piling on those problems. We think we got over it, but really it's been weighing on us, and we do need to go seek out, help, and we need to get more comfortable with seeking out help. Children who were raised in an emotionally healthy environment, they could go to that parent and say, I need help with this, I need help with that. But people in dysfunctional households, they either that parent was absent, so they couldn't go to them, physically absent, or that parent was emotionally absent, where you felt like you could not go to them and ask them for advice about anything without being like judged or yelled at, or without being dismissed or turned away. So it's important to learn how to go ask for help. So I'm going to read this quote really quickly. It says, "Struggling with problems, however minor or large, is something every human being experiences. In life, we are often taught to grit our teeth together and push forward. Yet, the act of seeking guidance can be a crucial ingredient in ensuring well-being and fostering progress. In many ways, society carries with it a sense of expectation that should you stumble, you are wholly responsible in making sure you get back up. In reality, few can do this entirely without some sort of support network. Oftentimes, we hide our struggles in an attempt to seem like we are coping effectively, without consideration for how these issues may compound over time, often manifesting in the form of health issues of the mind and the body." So I did want to just include that quote, because that pretty much sums it up of why it's very important for you to break that pattern or that cycle of not going to seek out help, and going to seek out that guidance and seek out that help for your problems before they manifest into even bigger problems. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into the next section, which is discipline. Okay, so last we're going to talk about discipline. And even though I included this last, this is actually the most important aspect of refathering yourself. Actually, it's the most important aspect of refathering and remothering yourself. Because without discipline, you won't keep up with the methods that we discussed in terms of reparenting yourself altogether. So you're needing to be disciplined and be consistent, when it comes to, these methods that you use in order to reparent and heal yourself. So the definition of discipline is bringing structure and stability into a person's life. So when you bring structure and stability into your life, that means that you are consistently practicing the things that are going to lead you into being, a healthy, happy, human being, and functioning in a way that, will keep you afloat mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. And this can be very difficult, when you've had a dysfunctional household. It can be very difficult to discipline yourself for multiple reasons. First off, if you're someone who, you are prone to escapist tactics, like you would rather kind of escape, your issues or your problems, which is very common. It could be very difficult to discipline yourself, because in order to discipline yourself, you would have to be grounded in reality. You would have to have, like a set schedule, or you would need to have some consistency in your life. And sometimes when we take part in escapism and escapist tactics, it can be difficult for us to stay grounded in reality, and therefore difficult for us to participate in it and difficult for us to stay disciplined, So, one aspect of disciplining yourself would be looking at, the escapist tactics and, figuring out if they are unhealthy or not, and, kind of replacing them with more healthy means of coping. Because if you have healthy means of coping instead of like the destructive escapism, then, it's easier for you to remain disciplined and focused and grounded in reality. So, for example, I'm a Pisces moon, for those of you that are into astrology. And so I'm very prone to escapism. And one aspect of escapism for me is sleeping, right? That's not necessarily unhealthy, but it can be if it's excessive, because sometimes I would prefer to take a nap over working, and that can be an issue. That can be a very big issue. Of course, I'm not talking about like a healthy nap where you nap during the day, then you get up and you go to work. I'm talking about like I would prefer to sleep all day long as a mode of escape. And you could see how that would be very unhealthy, because it's very difficult for you to keep a disciplined, balanced, healthy lifestyle when you just want to sleep to escape your problems all the time. First off, you're not facing your problems if you're always sleeping and running away from them. And second of all, you have to function as an adult in this world. So you have to work, you have to take care of your health, you have to go to your appointments and things of that sort. So, sleeping all day is not helpful. That's just one example. So then I would have to address, any issues that I'm having that would, make me want to sleep all day long. And then I would have to find an alternative to, addressing those issues so that I don't fall into that escapist pattern and kind of neglect all of my responsibilities. So yeah, you may need to kind of look at, whatever it is in your life that you use as a form of escape, and you're needing to kind of heal the root of that and find something like a different or healthy alternative. Like, for example, if I feel like I'm depressed and I want to sleep all day, one thing that I can do like as an alternative that helps me is going to the gym. And you can see how going to the gym would fit more into like a healthy, disciplined lifestyle than sleeping all day, because I'm not going to be at the gym working out all day long. I'm putting it into my schedule, and it's helping me to kind of lift my mood so that then I can function throughout the day. I will also say that discipline is very important, because sometimes when you have too much free time on your hands, or when you don't have like a set focus, or you don't have like a consistent schedule, it's easy to start taking part in like destructive things and things that involve self-sabotage. Excuse me. I notice that when I am not on a set schedule and I don't have like my healthy lifestyle like scheduled in, I will fall into self-sabotage or destructive habits like, poor eating and things of that sort. And that's very important to note when you are, someone who grew up in a dysfunctional household, because most likely you lack that structure and that discipline anyway. So you're needing to kind of build, that muscle, or else you can easily slip into, destructive things and destructive coping mechanisms. So yeah, let me see what else. Yeah, it's just going to be very important for you to train your discipline muscle. It's literally like a muscle. I know that I was watching The Real and the talk show, and Tamara was, I'm sure you all know Tia and Tamara. Tamara's was on a daytime talk show called The Real, and she was talking about her work ethic and her discipline, and she was saying she kind of owes it all to her parents, because her parents were in the military, and so they would kind of get them up at 5:30 a.m. or to 5 or whatever, and they had to, make their beds, and like basically they had like a military morning routine. And she said that now it's just kind of stuck in her. So disciplining yourself, it really is like a muscle that you just work until you get it right. And also, I do want to state that another part of refathering yourself could also be, setting healthy goals for yourself, something to look forward to. And discipline would, of course, be, very important in that, because if you're going to set a goal, you're needing discipline and you need consistency in order for you to, reach that goal. And I feel like that is something very important to note, that goal setting can be very effective for you, and it can be very beneficial for your mental health, especially because sometimes when we were raised in a dysfunctional household, one thing that you'll notice is that, maybe you just never had anything to aim for. Maybe you never had, maybe you never thought that you would even live to see a certain age. And I know that that's really morbid, but it's true. Like when you live in a dysfunctional household, sometimes you don't even think about your future, because you're just in survival mode trying to live from day to day. And so you don't really have like anything to look forward to. You never really set any goals. And I think that setting goals would be a good way to give you something to look forward to every day, especially if it's something that you are very passionate about. It could be very beneficial and very healing for you. So that could be an important part of refathering yourself. And that in itself could help you just, change your life depending on what your goals are. Like maybe you've been living in a toxic environment and maybe you're setting the goal of, being able to make enough money to live on your own, things of that sort. It'll give you like something to look forward to and something to work towards. And of course, like I said, discipline is going to be very, very important when it comes to reaching or mastering those goals. So I think that that's it. Trying to see if there's anything else that I was missing. If I missed anything, I'll include it in the description box, but I don't think that I did. So I really hope that this video was helpful. I know it was kind of long, so you may want to watch it over and take some notes. But yeah, that concludes the reparenting videos. There will be more videos, of course, about inner child work and things of that sort in the future. But I really hope that these videos were helpful to you. I really hope that they weren't too rambly. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate all of you. The next video I will be doing will be about Patreon. Finally starting Patreon, and I appreciate all of your support. I appreciate all of your patience with me, and yeah, I just really hope that this was helpful. I will see you guys in my next video.